Claudette with theycallmemartha.com, and I'm back today with another card tutorial using items mostly from my stash. I wanted to create a dog-themed card, and I knew I had several stamp sets from my favorite things that I could start with, and so I've pulled several of them for my card today. And I've also pulled out a background stamp. This is also from my favorite things. It's called Touch of Texture, and I love that it gives just a hint of a background, and I think it'll work out perfect for today's card. I'll also be doing some Copic coloring, which I am not a colorist, so I will likely speed through my coloring, but I'll share with you kind of the key details of the colors I'm using and so on, in case you want to use those same colors or similar colors. So I'm going to start by stamping the dog from this set, and this is called Furever Friends, and then also the dog house from You Make My Tail Wag. I believe this one's still available. The other one might be a little bit older, but again, I will link them up if I'm able to find them. And so I'm going to color these with Copic friendly ink because I do plan on using my alcohol markers today. And I have the die for the dog, but not for the doghouse. And I think that's okay because the doghouse should be pretty easy to cut out. So today I'm using Memento Tuxedo Black ink. Again, this is alcohol friendly. Today I'm using my Mini Misty just to make sure that I get really good coverage on my stamps. I may need to stamp them more than once. I'm using a pressure tool that my sweet friend Lisa Ann made for me, and it works great to help get even pressure for your stamps when you're stamping. I know there's lots of different tools out there today that accomplish the same thing, but to me this one's extra special because my friend made it. Okay. So I have, I think, really good stamp coverage there. While I have my stamp positioner out, I'm going to go ahead and stamp and emboss my sentiment for this card. I pulled from the Lucky Dog stamp set by MFT. I pulled out Sorry I Barked at You, which I thought was such a cute sentiment, and I thought would go perfect for this card today. So I'm just using a scrap of black cardstock. I love the contrast of a white embossed sentiment on black cardstock, and I think it goes with just about any color combination that you're using for your card. I'm treating my cardstock with some anti-static powder just to make sure that my embossing powder goes only where I want it to. And today I'm stamping with a Versamark ink. And I think I'm going to stamp it a couple of times just to make sure I get really good coverage. All right, so now I'm just going to add my white embossing powder. I'm using Hero Arts White. And then just tapping off my excess. All right, I'm going to set this aside to cool, and then I'll buff off that anti-static powder and then die cut it. All right, now I'm going to color my images, and I'm going to speed this process up. Again, I am not a colorist. I just use my markers the way it looks good to me. I will do my best to share with you the colors that I'm using as I go along. I have finished coloring the images, and as you could tell while I was coloring, I went outside the lines, and I don't know what it is about red alcohol markers, but they always want to bleed. And so I use a white jelly roll pen generally to clean up my lines and hopefully mask some of those errors. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and cut these out. Again, I have the dies for the little dog, but not for the doghouse. I will just fussy cut out that little doghouse, and I'll be right back. All right, I fussy cut my doghouse and die cut my little dog, as well as my sentiment. And now I'm going to set these aside just to work on the background a little bit. So when I want to have just a touch of a background, so not the full background, but just a hint of it, I like to just work with the stamp, no stamp position or anything like that. And I'm going to use today's Speckled Egg Distress Oxide ink. And I'm just going to ink up the middle of my stamp. Again, I'm just working to add a little bit of texture to my background. Right, I cut a piece of light colored craft cardstock 3 by 5.5. And I'm just going to lay it right on top of that ink that I just added to my background stamp, and then give it some pressure. Again, I'm only looking for just a hint of this texture in the background. And I achieved exactly what I was hoping to. Again, not complete coverage, but just a little bit of that texture in the background. My plan is to have our cute little dog in the middle with the doghouse kind of in the background, and then the sentiment along the bottom. And before I glue them down, I think I'm going to add a little bit of texture with some twine. I'm going to add some double-sided adhesive to the back of my panel. And that way I have a place for my twine to kind of stick to. Just going to expose the liner here. I think what I want to do is have a little bit of twine along the top and some along the bottom. So I'm just going to tack down the end of my twine in my adhesive and just wrap. And then I can trim it off, and it's already stuck down to my adhesive, so I know it won't move. Now I want to do the same thing along the bottom, but I know I'm going to have my sentiment strip down here. So I'm going to make this a little bit higher on my panel and just do that same wrap. And I think 3 times around looks nice. And I am not making it symmetrical. As you can see, I'm, just wrapping it loosely here. And then I'll trim off the back. And then while I'm working with my card panel, I'm going to add some foam. I want to pop this up on my card base. So I am going to cut a piece of sheet foam. This is just from the kids section in your craft store. You can also use, like, if you have foam tape, you can use that as well. But when I work with a large piece that I'm trying to pop up, I like to use a solid piece of foam because I think it adds a lot more stability to the card. So I'm just going to loosely measure out about what I need here. All right, so I've just roughly cut out a piece of my fun foam, and I'm just going to add that to the back of my panel. I need some more adhesive on the back. I'm going to add some additional adhesive to the back of my foam panel. All right, now I want to add my cute little dog house and cute little dog. I think I'm going to pop up my dog a little bit. I'm going to glue my dog house to the base of my panel. I don't need to pop it up. Now I'm just going to use some foam dots to pop up my little dog. And I'm just going to place him strategically on top of the part of my doghouse, the bone specifically where I colored over with the red so that you can't see it. And then I think I'm also going to pop up my sentiment. And I'll just add a little bit of adhesive to the back of my foam and then position it on this lower section of my little panel here. Okay, to finish off our card, I want to add a little bit of color to my card panel, and I'm going to achieve that using some washi tape. This is a great way, again, to use your stash. You can also use, if you have pattern paper, little scraps of it left, you can do that as well. So I'm going to use my washi tape along the edges of my card panel. And this is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm going to add the stripe to both sides. And then one tip I have for using washi tape, especially if you're using it on a card panel, you want to make sure that it does not pull up the edges. So I like to extend over my panel and then wrap the edges of my tape behind my card. And then I'm going to use this wider washi next to it. I'm also extending that washi off the edge of my card the same way I did the little stripe, so that I have some to wrap along the back of the card. Okay, and I'm doing that same thing on this side. And now I can wrap my edges along the back side of the panel so that I have secured my washi tape, but also I have this really nice finished edge. I'm going to do that all the way around. Now I just want to glue my dog panel to the front of my A2 size panel. So I'm just centering it, and I'm going to make sure that top and bottom it lines up, but that it's centered left and right. Just like that. And now I want to add this to my card base. I'm using just a top folding A2 size card base, and I'm just going to apply wet glue so that I have a little bit of open time to wiggle it around and make sure that my edges are all lined up. I'm just making sure my fold is along the top, and now I'm going to line up my panel. And again, because I've used wet glue, I have a little bit of wiggle room to make sure that all of my edges are lining up. I always like to coordinate the inside of my card with my card design. So I'm going back to my Furever Friends stamp set, and I'm going to use these tiny little paw prints just to create some cuteness on the inside. And I think I will just use a stamping block versus my stamping positioner. And just as a tip, you can see this stamp is intended to be kind of rounded. I believe it's supposed to go on the bottom of this cute little dog bed, but I want it to appear much more random, as if the little dog was walking across my card. And the nice thing about photopolymer stamps is you can manipulate the shape. So here I'm just going to hold down one edge and then reshape this stamp. You can't do it with all of them, but the thinner ones, it makes it really, really easy to just get that different shape. All right, I'm going to use my VersaFine Onyx Black ink and stamp these cute little dog paws just here on the corner of my card. I also decided to add a secondary sentiment from the same stamp set. And I'm just going to use a stamping block. I'm still using my Onyx black ink. And then I'm just going to add that to the inside of my card. That's my card design for today. I love that I was able to use items from my stash like washi tape and some stamp sets that I already had purchased. If you like my card tutorial today, please do consider giving me a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel. And until next time, have a great day.